let's talk about one of the most important inventions you've probably never thought much about, distilled spirits. I mean, how do we get from just basic beer and wine to the huge world of spirits we have today? Well, it wasn't a simple step. It was a massive technological leap. We're going to dive into the story of how distillation didn't just give us stronger drinks, it completely changed medicine, trade, and even culture itself. So, to really get it, we have to start with a really basic question. For thousands and thousands of years, every alcoholic drink in the world hit the exact same wall. Why? Why can't you make wine or beer that's stronger than, say, 15 or 20% alcohol? What was the big barrier? Well, that barrier has a name. It's called the wall of fermentation. And for millennia, it was a natural limit that humanity just couldn't figure out how to break. And it all boils down to one tiny little organism. Meat yeast. It's the magical little engine behind fermentation. It gobbles up sugar and, in return, gives us alcohol. But here's the catch, the fatal flaw. The very alcohol that yeast creates is poison to it. So, once the booze concentration gets up to around 15 to 20%, the yeast just dies off. The party's over. It literally drowns in its own creation. And this biological limit, it wasn't just a small problem. It created huge issues. You've got drinks with low alcohol content, which means they spoil pretty fast. They're also mostly water, which makes them super heavy and bulky. Trying to trade them over long distances was a nightmare. These were serious economic and logistical headaches. So how in the world do you get past that wall? The answer wasn't to improve fermentation. It was to invent a whole new technology, a way to separate the good stuff, the spirit, from the water. And this breakthrough created something so new, so potent, they called it aqua ardens, or burning water. The idea behind it is actually brilliantly simple, and it all comes down to basic physics. Step 1, you heat up an alcoholic liquid, like wine. Now, because alcohol has a lower boiling point than water, it turns into steam first. Step 2, you capture that alcohol vapor. Step 3, you cool it down, and it condenses back into a liquid. But this time, it's a much, much more concentrated liquid. That's it. Heat it, catch the vapor, cool it down. Simple. And for perfecting this process with alcohol, we can largely thank the golden age of Arab science. We're talking about the 8th century when an incredible chemist by the name of Jabir ibn Hayyan documented and refined this whole process. And in doing so, he basically changed everything. He did it with a special device he perfected called the alembic still. It comes from the Arabic alembic. This was the key piece of tech. It was the hardware that allowed for that precise, controlled heating and cooling you need to cleanly separate pure alcohol from wine. This was the tool that created the world's first true high-proof spirits. So, from the Arab world, this powerful new knowledge starts to move. It begins this slow, steady journey that would eventually take it all around the planet, transforming every single society it touched. And just look at the path it took. This knowledge, which was first used for things like medicine and chemistry, it seeps into Europe through a couple of key channels. First, through the famous medical school in Salerno, Italy, where they were translating Arab texts. And second, through monks returning from the Crusades. And by the 13th century, it's the monasteries that had become the high-tech hubs for distillation in Europe. And the Europeans who first encountered this stuff, they were just blown away by it. Around the year 1300, a physician named Arnaldus de Villanova, he called it aqua vitae, which means the water of life. He said it was, and I quote, truly the water of immortality. I mean, that's how miraculous this pure, potent liquid seemed to them. Now, here's where things get interesting. For a very long time, the accepted story, the one in all the history books, was that this technology, born in the Arab world, matured in Europe, finally made its way to China, way later, around the 13th or 14th century. But that whole story just got completely flipped on its head. Because in January of 2025, a team of archaeologists announced a discovery that just completely rewrites the history of this entire invention. 3,000. Remember that number. It's the number that changes everything. 3,000 years. So get this. Inside an ancient bronze vessel from China's Shang dynasty, a vessel that had been sealed for 3 millennia, scientists confirmed the liquid inside was distilled liquor. This is a bombshell. It means distillation wasn't a single invention that spread from one place. It was likely discovered independently thousands of years earlier in China. The drive to get past that wall of fermentation, it wasn't just one culture's idea. It was a universal human quest. So look, whether it was invented in the Arab world or independently in ancient China, one thing is absolutely clear. Once distillation was perfected and unleashed, it really did change the world. So let's break down exactly how. Remember all those problems with fermented drinks? Well, distillation solved every single one of them. Low alcohol content? Boom, you can now concentrate it up to 95%. Poor preservation? The high alcohol content kills microbes, making spirits stable for years. Inefficient transport? You've just slashed the volume and weight, making it a perfect commodity for global trade. It even gave you more alcoholic bang for your buck from the same amount of grain. Problem solved.
And its impact on medicine was, well, it was a revolution. For centuries, high-proof alcohol was one of the only effective anesthetics you could get for brutal surgeries, like amputations. It was an incredible disinfectant for cleaning wounds and surgical tools, which you can bet saved a lot of lives. And it became the universal solvent for making medicines, pulling the active compounds out of herbs to create tinctures and elixirs.
Economically, it was an absolute game changer. Spirits became a hugely valuable commodity for international trade. Whole new industries, we're talking barrel makers, glass blowers, shipping companies, they all popped up to support this new business. And, of course, governments quickly realized they could tax the heck out of it, making spirits a massive source of revenue that could fund empires and armies. And maybe most beautifully, culture itself was distilled. All around the world, different people took this one single technology and used their own local ingredients to create their own unique spirits that became totally central to their national identities. Think about it. Scottish whiskey, French cognac, Chinese baijiu, American rum and whiskey. These aren't just drinks. They are liquid culture, and they were all born from that alembic still. So the main takeaway here is this. The invention of distillation was never really just about making stronger alcohol. It was about humanity figuring out how to smash a fundamental natural limit. And by doing that, we solved huge problems in preservation, in trade, in medicine, and we reshaped the entire world in the process. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What seemingly simple barrier exists today that, if we could just break through it, could change everything for us tomorrow?